Meant to be broadcast on this gigantic computer screen right in front of me, but it's not playing nice. So we're in the midst of a reboot. It is Wednesday, Miracle Ace, Mercury's Day, 11:33 p.m. a.m. I always do that, Pacific time. So time for Storytelling Hour. Now, first things first, I'm sad to report that this will be the last Storytelling Hour at this time of the day, this time of the week, because Anna is beginning a series of studies that are scheduled for this time. And that means then it's me as daddy. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do, and frankly, I should have just closed this thing down before we left for our few weeks in Romania, which we have just returned from late last night, because I wasn't able to, with the time zone change and more that I'm looking forward to speaking about some today, I wasn't really able to be live for Storytelling Hour then. So I'm not sure how it's going to go moving forward, but please know that I will not be live weekly on Wednesdays, at least for a time. So I will miss this opportunity for a lively live broadcast. And I'll either move it to another time or maybe just change the shape and the scene. I'm looking forward to recording more conversations with fellow keepers of the starry cloth. Oh, like Winter Weldon, who I see is here right now. I've made arrangements tentatively with Ellie Cleary, with Peter Webb to connect and to speak, with Andrew Smith. And so I think that's something that I'll do. And I'm wondering if maybe I should get into that whole editing scene as I once did and be here for less of the babble side of the astro babble and more of the astro. Time will tell. All right, so the thing I wanted to speak about today was how I would just suck as a digital nomad. And I think some people are set up for traveling when they're on the road, and some are not. Now, I will say that I excel at and I love traveling for work. So in September, for example, I will join Daniel Jamario in the Turning of the Ages Mystery School for a live night sky intensive cosmology event retreat at Faywood Hot Springs in New Mexico. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll show up and just like fully show up. You know, that one gets interesting, and I think it's actually in this same topic. Because now with the baby and with a partner who herself is working as a professional astrologer, and a kid 10 years old who's interested in seeing places, you know, there's more conversation about, well, should we all just go? Like, for example, at this retreat coming up, we could have had like family cabin down there. And I'm resistant to it. I think for a good reason. It's like when I go to these work events, I want to be fully present for the work. Do you know what I mean? And I can't do that when it's family time. I think some people are much better at balancing that than I am. I'm not great at that. And by the way, this is meant to be an astrology chat, so I want to look at this in a chart. And I was hoping to look at charts together with you. And it's not going to happen because this computer, which just decided to boot up, wasn't playing nice earlier. So here we are. But that's all right, because I want to keep this more general anyway, and something that you can apply to your own chart that maybe we can have a conversation about of like, how would this look? Like, what would digital nomad, somebody who excels at digital nomad look like in a chart? What would somebody who excels at working at retreats with their family present look like in a chart? And what is the opposite of that? And I wonder if my chart looks more like the opposite side of those things, because I'm here to admit that I'm not so great at those. All right. So anyway, what I do know about me is that when I journey on trips, I'm not great at getting work done. I have been in the past. Like, there has been times in my past where a plane ride is just the laptop. And with a family now, that's out of the option. But I can't really point my finger at that, because I think before family life was happening for me, I was really starting to lose that ability to work focus on the plane. Now, some of that also, however, is if I'm heading out to a retreat and if I'm preparing slides for presentations that I'm going to offer at the retreat, or just game plan in general, like heading to the thing, fully getting dialed in to be at the thing. But I'm just talking about, like, if I'm traveling for vacation, for a family happening, whatever, or heading to Hawaii. That's when I first started noticing that I was not great at traveling while on a journey. No, sorry, working while on a travel journey. Trips to Hawaii. Because the work should be the travel. Do you know what I mean? So that's where we want to talk about the homework line in astrology. And it's fun that I keep messing up AM, PM for these storytelling hours. It's like every week I make that very similar mistake. I kind of find it to be hilarious, because I'm supposed to be a student and a teacher of space and time, right? But it's fun for that to happen, because we want to speak about the Meridian line, right? And of course, AM, PM, it's about the meridian. What? The sun to the meridian above the ground, which is what? The MC. And it's a point that we look to in an astrology chart to speak of our work. My first teacher, Daniel Gemario, calls it right livelihood, the right livelihood project, the MC in your chart. I like to see it as a point that helps us understand more about our personal design of how we can give back as earthlings, and how we can make a loving. And that's kind of like a bit of an existential crisis that I've been in. That term is way too dramatic, isn't it? It's like, is this my loving still? Because I know there was a time in my life when what was fun for me, like where all of my passion lived, was this work as an astrologer, as a teacher, as a researcher, as a writer. I used to actually write. Now I really struggle with it. I will say that in my client work, typically, it's not always this way, and I'm sure anybody who works with clients would, if they're honest, say the same thing. Much of this depends upon the client. Sometimes the day of the week, the mood, I'd say the stars. But, typically, my client work, I'm fully present. I love it. I get to connect with amazing people. I get to share this great gift of astrology as a tool to help people help themselves. I speak in my client sessions with many who are completely literate in the astrological language. We can explore, I can teach, I can share some of why I do this way and that, and speaking of, that's the other side of my work in astrology. Like, I'm a teacher. I love it. My love as a teacher and for teaching, and my love for my ability to teach, that like waxes and wanes. It changes shape. But I love it. The part that's a drag for me, and I think this is true for anybody who's in a work for themselves is like the marketing side. I don't like selling this stuff. It I struggle with it. Um, Social media, there was a time when I was really like thriving there. Once it became like so market oriented, I really had a hard time. Once it became like pay to play, I have a hard time with that, you know? Um, and some of it too, I think, just has to do with how I'm plugging into world events, the way that I see things versus the way that they are seen by, oh, most of the community that I find myself in, you know. I mean, even the truth that over the last year since 2019, I've had to become more careful with my words, which you probably just felt in me. Like, I struggle with that. All right. And, you know, by the way, I wonder where all of you are with everything. I'm just like, Nadine, I'm seeing you're saying marketing sucks. Yeah. Um, and I'm super grateful that many organizations who excel at marketing, and I kind of love that, the astrology hubs, other places that have been so beneficial for my own career, the Organization for Professional Astrology, OPA, Kepler College, but places that I'll be working with Astrology Hub later this year, and I'm just stay connected with all these places, you know, and more. By the way, like I'm the president of the local chapter of NCGR. It's not like I'm not still involved with the organizations and the groups, but there's been less of that for me, likely. And some of the shift for me has been the result of baby coming in and trying to make more family decisions, right? Like trying to make sure that I'm protecting enough of my time to be as engaged with my daughter as I can be. Because that's the work, that's the play. Like that's what I need to be, want to be, love to be living for right now. But some of that too is meant to be some Saturn, some Capricorn, you know, thinking of the future and working hard so that she can have her opportunities and those kinds of things, you know. And it's not just with the birth of Maya, but, you know, coming into relationship with Anna when, you know, Koa was here. He was really 3 years old and we started getting fully involved. So I'm going to close this squeaky door. All right. So the Meridian, right? What is the Meridian? Well, let's start with the horizon because it's like a much more grounded concept because it literally is the ground. And it's so easy to invoke that image of what the ascendant and the descendant are in an astrology chart. I mean, first and foremost, astronomically, right? Earthstronomically, like in our human experience. It's so important to me to help us have a sensual human experience of these things and not just have it lost in the mental cloud, right? So we want to speak about the angles of the chart. And by the way, for those of you like Winter and 18 who are hanging out in constellations, please know that I was like very dissatisfied with the Earthstrology class that happened too late at night with blurry background and all sorts of things while I was in Romania. And it's going to get redone now that I'm home once this thing wants to work and can play with the pretty slides. And so I don't know if that's something I'm going to offer live or what. We have a gathering here on Saturday, so I'm just not sure. Anyway, you can feel that in me right now. I'm just like not sure. And there's times in my life when I fully am, and there's times in my life when I'm not so much. I'm really feeling some of the initiations and activations that the astrology charts kind of would predict for me to be experiencing at this time. All right. Anyway. So the horizon, right? The ground beneath our feet, the marriage of heaven and earth, right? The sky that we can see above is the sky we cannot below, right? And what a beautiful thing also to know that there is sky below. right? And the sky that's rising in the east, right? It's reborn from this place beneath, this invisible place. So the stars that are right now in the first, like if I stop time, like they will be first to rise. Where the stars that already have, they're going to be last. They have to reach their height and rest in the west to journey through the underworld, through the Duat, through the invisible places below, right? To anti-culminate, to root beneath the ground before they come to rise again. And that rising, reaching, resting, rooting, it is just the fundamental journey of the planets, of the stars, of the signs through the houses, right? That daily motion, that rotation. And I gotta say, it's something that like I had to experience. It's not something that was taught to me. I'm not sure it's something that can be taught so well. And I think the way to teach it right is just to remind somebody of their experience. Like this is as natural as it gets. For me, this is like, it has to have happened before the signs. Like what we in astrology these days call houses or quadrants. Like this would be the original astronomical foundation of what we are using today as one of the principal contributors to reading a chart. Now, it's not that's not what we see in the history of astrology. Like that's not necessarily what's suggested, but following the sun through the sky, right? By day and the stars by night. Like that is obviously the source code of this cosmic craft that you and I have been called to. And while we follow the sun through the signs to speak, of course, of the year, following the sign through the houses is the day. You don't have to live 24 hours as we divide it today to experience this profound shift of light and darkness. Yeah. And of course, the horizon is completely fundamental, right? Foundational, groundational, right? The sun is either rising, taking its path above, or setting and then journeying beneath. At least as we believe in our earth astrology of the thing. And I believe that's very clear in like the Egyptian view of the sun journeying through the Duat during the 12 hours of night. Like I don't think this idea that what is above the stars that we see after the sun has set, like I don't think it was, I'm clearly not articulating this well, so let me pause. Do not believe in any way that the ancients were not keen to the truth that the stars currently above the ground will go below and then come back up, right? And that the way that daily experience shifts throughout the year, like that fundamental earth astronomy of houses and signs as we would describe it today, it just goes all the way back. And I know that in my life we will be uncovering more and more about the roots of this craft, and that I won't be surprised or shocked to find that the ancients were doing way more than they're currently given credit for. All right. So day and night, the sun above the ground or the sun below the ground, hot and cold, right? I mean, this isn't just some concept. right? It's not just some symbolic thing. It's just as real as it gets. And I'm fond of starting Earth first. I think on one level, maybe as a reaction to the attacks from the materialist science camp that says like astrology is just making shit up, basically. um, or that, these stars so far away don't have any influence on our experience here on Earth. It's like, first of all, like, that's not the teaching. Secondly, they probably do, but first of all, that is not the teaching. And we lose it, right? The teaching is that astronomical experience influences your humanity. Undeniably. And all I need to show that there is truth to that statement is to remind you that you have a very different experience of Earth during the day than you do at night. And I don't care who you are and what you do at day versus what you do at night. What I know is that there is a versus. Now, I grew up in Vegas, right? The whole point of the casino, and frankly, I didn't visit too many casinos when I was a kid, but the whole point of the casino is you lose day and night, right? You just get sucked into this timeless place where you can just give all your money away because you lost the ground beneath your feet, right? And perhaps like the turning of the heavens is the most blessed reminder of the ground beneath our feet. And practicing experience of sunrise and sunset is really important. That's something I know we are offering to our kids that was not offered to me. And frankly, hearing myself say that is something we need to do more and work towards more. It was very easy where we used to live. We just saw the sunset every day. It was clear, and it was usually clear. Where we are now, we're going to have to go do that. We don't have to go far, but we have to go do that. Where we lived before our last house, we had to go do that, and we did much more. And it's really important. I love hearing myself say this right now. Like, if there's anything I can offer for my daughter that will help her have a natural experience of the things that I would love to teach her, but I will never hopefully force onto her, it's just taking her to experience a sunset. The mystery and the magic of the setting sun is something we should never forget, and that's something that we should tend to. It's like a coal that requires our breath to stay hot. You know what I mean? Because that will start a fire of knowing, of actual experiential knowing that cannot be taught. And though I can teach rules of astrology and this and that and why, what I'm most interested in offering is serving as a reminder for people to go experience things so that through the contemplations of their experience, they will have the wisdom that cannot be taught. I mean, I can share what I'm finding in the contemplations of my experience and how that ties into the ancient code of the cosmic craft. And I love to. Maybe a little bit too much, right? Maybe not enough. I do not, I know that has value. I know that has value. But I know it is near meaningless in comparison to the value that you earn when you contemplate your experience as an earthling in general and astronomically. So what I can offer that's so much more interesting and important than this is what I find is this is a way you can go find it. You know, it's funny. I have a general rebellious nature. Some might see that in the Sun conjunct Uranus at the time of my birth. There's other places to find it in my chart. I will say as well that I have a general distrust of teachers, and that I earned that distrust because I went to school where I was told a bunch of lies, including astrology is totally bullshit, right? And I try to resist the ease of falling into belief in those who say, you've been lied to, you've been lied to, you've been lied to, so here's the truth. It's a very easy thing to fall into. Like when we awaken to the truth that so much of what we learned is just complete nonsense, it's very easy to believe the one who comes around and says, what you learned was nonsense. And you're like, yeah. And like, this is what's true, right? That might be true. So I say all this because I've had some just general resistant to the teachings of astrologers and astrology that says this equals this. It's like, why? And I think the why is the most important word for the student, right? And that we're all students. Why? Why is it that way? Now, teachers often don't like to be asked why. In my personal opinion, there's a couple reasons for that. One, you got a lot to do. Two, you're probably like, I'm getting to it. But also, zero, like most importantly, the one fundamental, you have to discover your why. And I don't even mean like, you know, the big your why are you here? Why did you incarnate? You know, why do you do what you do? You know, obviously. But I mean, you know, why does Venus significate love? Because we decided Venus significates love? Because that's just how it is? Because that's what my teacher said, so I teach you this? Why? And my argument, of course, is just go find out. How? Go be with Venus. So bring your eyes to the sky. Now, some people don't see. I mean, some people are blind. Go to Venus anyway, right? Like planets aren't just something to observe with the eyeballs. Some of them cannot be. But you go and you have your experience in your way. And what I want to teach is here are some ways that I've found to go have an experience, right? And by the way, there are ways that I've found for me to go have an experience. They might not work for you. They might. But I think the most important thing that any of us could ever teach is just the simple reminder that everybody already knows. You gotta go do it. You gotta go do it. So this conversation's not what I thought was going to happen today. And I hesitate also because I know I get really broken record about these things. But maybe it's just a beautiful record that should be played often. All right. So the ascendant and the descendant. Just consider the immense, powerful difference between the East and the West. And you know, a nice thing about the East and the West is directionally, they align the Eastern horizon with the astrological ascendant, the Western horizon with the astrological descendant, like everywhere on Earth. To be fair, things get really interesting beyond the Arctic circles, right? You can go to Antarctica in January and the sun will never set, right? But this isn't only about the sun anyway. I mean, you can go to places on Earth where the ascendant degree is further north than it is east. But generally speaking, the place that of the intersection of the ecliptic, the sun's path, generally that of the planets for our solar system is relatively flat, right? The ecliptic plane, the zodiac, with the eastern horizon, that is the ascendant, right? What is ascending in this moment now? And by the way, even when I use whole sign techniques, and I often do, I'm going to cast a chart that very clearly emphasizes the ground beneath my feet. In other words, I want to cast a quadrant chart. Placidus, Porphyry, Regiomontanus, Campanus, what have you. That shows this line of the ground, right? With the circle of the zodiac intersecting the horizon. On the eastern side, what is rising, and on the western side, what is resting. And I gotta say, it's hilarious to me that, you know, tropical astrology is often attacked by folks who are practicing in the Vedic tradition, for example, because the tropical signs do not align with the constellations like they once did. So when I say that the moon was in Gemini when I was born, for example, well, my moon was at the horns of the bull, right? And you can dig the argument by those who would say that's obviously a Taurus moon. I can very much appreciate that, although I will say my 25-degree tropical Gemini moon is actually still Gemini in most of the sidereal zodiacs, and I digress. But, you know, hilarious thing is to be under attack by those who would say that, like, your astrology is not aligned to the astronomy, but they use this rectangle chart that has really no expression of the sky in a moment of time from a particular place. Like, you can learn how to see it in it, but it's just like, why not just like draw a line from the ground and draw the zodiac around it? Like the astrology chart, this is another sad thing. Like, it sucks that the astronomers are missing out on this. I mean, of our day and age, mostly, right? Most of the astronomers today are these rationalists who like need to attack astrology just in their fundamental core of their religion. And they're missing out on the opportunity to experience the astrological horoscope. I mean, not the ascendant when I say that, which is the proper definition of horoscopos, but rather like the map of the sky that an astrology wheel offers. They're genius. Interesting comment coming onto the screen. Right on topic. I believe, want to emphasize the ground beneath our feet more than anything else. And you know, what's funny is like what I'm doing right now is getting into the material that I meant to teach in the last class that I offered, and I will when it's revived, coming soon. It is all about the earth and the heavens and the way they relate. And I believe the human being is here to facilitate between the two. And that we are gifted with, whether it's biology or more, the framework to do so more than the other animals. And maybe that's just like species narcissism, whatever you would call that. But like Venus Revives says, yes, we are sacred bridges. Like I feel that that's the deal, right? We're walking around with the dome of Olympus here, throwing all its thunderbolts of electrical brains and such, but like feet on the ground. So looking at this place, the eastern horizon, where the heavens are ascending, rising, where the invisible is becoming visible, versus the descendant, where the visible is now moving beneath into the invisible spaces, like what is rising versus what is setting. What is new, maybe, we could clearly get to with our experience at the eastern horizon, seeing a sunrise, seeing a star rise, seeing a planet rise in the middle of the night. It's special. Where did it come from? That feeling of a rebirth. And what's the other side then? And it's very clear why so many indigenous traditions put the black color in the western side of the medicine wheel, right? Because that's where night begins, when the sun sets in that place. And look, in seeing the astrological connection of marriage, it once was death, by the way, the 7th house, where the heavens marry the earth, right? Well, you can see that. That got moved to the 8th. It's a little trickier. It's a little trickier to defend astronomically, frankly. You can do it. You want to work with shadows when you do, but you can do it. It's easier to do when you're living in a valley, by the way, and the sun actually disappears behind that hill, when in the 8th. But the marriage connection of the 7th, it is really so easy to experience. Go watch the sunset. Go watch the moon set. Go see Venus set. Go see Sirius set. More importantly, just go give yourself to the west for a night and just experience the heavens marrying the earth. It is profound. It is so simple and the most complicated thing. It's just so beautiful. All right, so what does any of this have to do with the meridian? Well, the horizon separates the above from the below. What is the meridian? It's the other line in the cross of matter of a chart. And it's simply, astronomically speaking, a great circle that runs north-south. A great circle is any circumference of a sphere, meaning it cuts the sphere into 2 equal hemispheres, right? And so the meridian divides the eastern sky that ups from the western sky that downs. That's become my favorite way to teach this thing, right? Because it helps us understand that, well, this is actually less of a visual experience, or maybe I could say experienced vision as well, and I'll get back to that. It is just as, or almost as profound as these angles of the chart that are tied to the ground. right? The ascendant, where the heavens are rising in the eastern horizon, the descendant, where the heavens are resting onto the western horizon, yeah? So, coming up, going down. But where something makes the transition from up to down, in other words, where it culminates, where it reaches its height, the mountain's peak. So sadly, too often ignorantly taught the midheaven as some point above your head. It's not. It's just not. That's a different thing, the zenith, than the MC. But it is the place, and it's not just the MC degree. It's not just where the ecliptic or the zodiac, the sun's path intersects this great circle that separates the east which ups from the west that downs, It's the entire separation of the upping sky from the downing sky, right? And it's where everything is culminating or reaching its height. And we can see why the ancients connected that culmination to our works. Like, you can literally see that, right? And not like figuratively we can see that. Like, you can go and see that. You can go and experience that. And by the way, if you can't see, and this for those who can, blindfold yourself and go experience it. You can feel it in your bones when the sun shifts from going up at midday to now coming down. You can especially, I suggest, feel it in your bones in the middle of the night. And you know what? The truth is, we're all blind to the sun in the middle of the night. Oh, I can chart. I can follow the stars. I can know, for example, what star of the zodiac the sun is currently opposite to. See what I'm saying? Like, in our day and age, the sun ingresses Virgo, and that means Sun Regulus. And what's opposite? Generally speaking, Familo. So if I'm watching Familo culminate at this time of the year, I know we're in like midnight. I don't mean something on a clock. 12 a.m., right? A.m., by the way, is not A.M. So let me get back to that. But, in the middle of the night, it's like I can't see the sun root down beneath the ground. But I can feel it in my bones. And so I think I'm like better at feeling that one in my bones because I can only feel it in my bones. Or I can see it in a chart, which I can't see. And this thing down there, down beneath the ground in the north, like, it's so fundamental. So the IC, right, the Imam Cheli, the bottom of the heavens, this place where the ecliptic, the sun's path, the heart of the zodiac intersects that meridian beneath the ground. It's so important because that's where things stop going down and start coming up. I wish I had learned that about the IC before I was told what the IC means. In the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School where I began my astrological study, it's called the Home and Roots Project. And yeah, we connect it with home. I think they say home and roots. What are roots? And look, it's connected with ancestors, the ancients, the buried ones, where we're coming from. I think it's intriguing that these days the calendar page flips in the middle of the night. That's new, by the way. It's fun to study Galileo's chart. Some say like you shouldn't use it because there's literally two different dates on it. It's actually the same date. I think it's February 15th and 16th. I can't remember exactly. But one he's measuring in the new way that was just coming online in Pisa during Galileo's life, which is to express time of the day through this AM PM convention. Okay, and by the way, that was not some tick-tock of a clock. It's when the sun actually reaches its height every day, right? The sun reaching, the sun at the midheaven, the shortest shadow of the day, because the sun is highest at that time, right? That's the sun on the meridian, right? So in the northern hemisphere sky, the sun souths at midday, and so the shadow is due north. Koala asks, how does the wandering magnetic pole change the meridian? Interesting question. It doesn't at all. It doesn't mean it's not changing our experience as earthlings or something like this, but when we're speaking astronomically about the meridians, we're looking at true north and south. So polar north and south versus magnetic north and south, right? Santa's place is Santa's place. So if you look on the globe, for example, the longitude lines, those are meridian lines, right? And defining a prime meridian is a fantastic thing, right? So many people say astrology is just like made up, you know? Why are there 12 signs instead of 10? Somebody just made it up. I don't believe so at all. I believe creation creates in 12s, and that's a long tale that I love to share. But as far as like which of the lines of longitude on Earth is prime, that shit's made up, right? And some have argued that Greenwich, England is not, you know, prime at all. And some have argued for a line that would go right through the Great Pyramid of Giza. Well, that one actually has some natural validity because Giza is at the geodetic center of Earth's land mass, which means you can draw diagonals from Giza in every direction, and you're going to hit more land than if you did so from any other place on Earth, besides the antipode of Giza, which means the opposite side of the globe from there. That's like an intriguing thing. Like maybe the center in this regard of Earth's land mass should be the place that we're drawing the prime meridian through. However, it wouldn't be the place where we're drawing like the prime parallel through, right? That would be the corresponding perpendicular to the meridians or the lines of longitude. In other words, the lines of latitude, the parallels, because clearly the prime parallel is the equator. And it's something that I feel is not obvious enough in our astrology. It's a great component to the houses, especially in some particular house systems, like the Regiomontana system, for example. The equator and equatorial measurement, it's become much more fundamental to modern astronomy than ecliptic measurements. But I feel modern astronomy is not giving enough focus to the ecliptic. Anyway, I'm not here to try to convert those folks, but I would love to bring more equator, more parallels, more Enlil, Anu, and Ea, if you're hip to the ancient Babylonian way, to the astrologers of our day, and intend to. And you know what? Where my why is, where my love is, and it just becomes more and more clear, is in the astronomy, is in the sacred astronomy, is in helping astrologers keep their feet on the ground and retrieve that natural experience of our astrology. Like, I don't want to just teach astronomy as it's coded in our day and age, right? I want to teach astronomy to astrologers. And we need more cowbell and door squeaks. Okay, so the meridian is so fundamental. Now, why can we see that this is a place that would be connected to vocation, to making a loving? Well, some of that just has to do with the idea that what's rising in the east is new. Is it? Why are we living in a system where we begin our days in the middle of the night? If 12 a.m. was the middle of the night, and sadly it's not, it once was. I'd rather look at the 24-hour clock and call that 0 than 12 a.m. anyway. Back to Galileo, his chart in his own pen honors one way of doing time, which is this new thing of the AM-PM convention. And he's born PM, is that right? Yeah, the Pisces sun is somewhere in the third quadrant of his Leo rising chart, 7th or the 8th house, depending on how you slice things. But he also has the date as it was written. Wait a second. I need to look at Galileo's chart. In the old way, which was measuring time from sunset. And, you know, it seems like weird to begin our days in the middle of the night. Doesn't it seem even weirder to begin days at sunset? And there's a profound and important reason why. I'm just seeing one as I open Galileo's chart that I haven't seen before. It makes me really happy to have a new astronomical revelation. So AM, PM, right? It's all about the meridian. I'm like, if we're going to do this experientially, it's about when the sun culminates at the meridian, reaches its height, you know, after it's climbed and now it's going to start going down. AM, like it's reached its depth and now it's coming up, right? So what we call 12 p.m. and 12 a.m. these days, it's now been denaturalized, right? It's taken away from the natural experience so it can align to the convention of a prime meridian with time zones. And frankly, for us to have like a global experience, like you need some kind of convention like that. I mean, I don't mean to demonize that, but I would also hopefully hope people will reclaim their connection to, you know, what we've now call like local time, right? Just to get out and be with the sun, be with the shadow, and experience that changing of the light, and just to get outside at night and like watch. If you look, so if you're northern hemisphere, just go out and be with the south during the night, and you'll just see that the whole sky's a rainbow, like many rainbows over there, right? Or not many rainbows, just like a rainbow with all of these different parallels, right? And that, of course, as the stars are journeying through that side of the sky, like they are reaching their height, the high part of the rainbow, you know, color. And this is like something that we kind of lose in the way that we chart astrology. It's there, but if you go watch it, like they just get reconnected in a way that I have a hard time expressing in words. It's something I can't wait to be in Santa Fe and spend some nights outside with some people who are active and engaged students of this stuff, because it's just a whole other thing when you can sit next to somebody and be there and do this together. Like what I can do when I'm not with somebody is I can show this to them like animated in software. I can take videos of it and share that. I can most importantly share the, hey, go do this. And, you know, and I know when the student come back and they're like, whew, I just saw this thing. And you're like, yes, right? Versus the ones who like took in all the videos and stuff and like, you know, did the math, but didn't go have an experience. You got to get out of the house. You got to, you know, anyway. The other side of the sky, circles. They're both circles. It's just one is circling a point that's above the ground. The other is circling a point that's below the ground. Well, that's profound, right? What does it mean? Why profound? Okay. Anyway, you can see this kind of beauty in beginning days in the middle of the night, because that is when, if 12 a.m. was actually, or the 0 was actually the sun at the lower meridian, the sun at the IC, it's kind of a beautiful thing because it's when the sun begins his daily climb. But our visual experience of that is that sunrise, sun at the ascendant. You know, I think naturally, if I was to ask 1,000 people, should we begin day, or does your day begin at sunrise or sunreach or sunset or sunroot? Everybody's, what, 90% plus will go sunrise. You know, we have light, the birds chirp, we wake up. You know, I'll leave the college kids out of that survey. And the musicians. All right. So rising, resting, you can see why, you can go experience why this is beginnings and endings, or youth and latter years, right? And that's how the ancients connected this. It's not taught that much in astrology these days, that the ascendant speaks for your youth, and that the descendant speaks for the other thing, right? Not your death, by the way, just latter years. Because death, in this sense, or things endings and beginnings in this regard, right, is the roots. So I like to call that the tomb and the womb, from which we will rise again, right? Youth, well, midlife, the meridian above the ground. But just as the ascendant and the descendant are opposite and the same, they are the same. What do I mean by that? They are where the heavens marry the earth. And they are opposite, because on one side, on the eastern horizon, the ascendant, it's where the heavens are rising. From the below to the above, from the invisible to the visible. And the descendant, it's the opposite of that, right? It's where everything is setting, visible to the invisible, from the above to the below. From the hot to the cold, where the ascendant's from the cold to the hot, right? Like, that matters. So the opposite, and they're the same. And that's profound, as far as I'm concerned. And this is true also of this other line in the cross of matter, the IC and the MC. And it's the HomeWork line, right? So why is the IC home? Because when the sun is there, it's the middle of the night, and blessed is the experience of where you have shelter and warmth and a home. And that can be much more, you know, than just like a bunch of beams, right? And shingles, and hopefully a thermostat. That's nice, and something that it controls, and, you know, something that turns and hot water comes out. Like, what a gift many of us are experiencing. A Wi-Fi connection. But most importantly, it's safety. Roots. It's where we're coming from in so many regards too. And that's where it gets more interesting, isn't it? And so what I want to share today is that it's difficult for me to work when I'm not at home. Now, like if I went to an office, and by the way, I do, it just happens to be in the backyard, and it's a different thing than when I'm in the house over there. And I'm blessed to have that. And it's the first time in my life, I guess, where I'm like in a in this work that I'm doing, in a different building for my work than I am for my home life. But it's here. It's a small property that we're renting, right? As some people are going to get up and drive to an office. Like Honor for sometimes has been wanting to rent a place or maybe do like the community office thing or whatever. I don't necessarily have that drive personally. It'd be really interesting to have a study of, probably first to set some hypotheses around what might this version of the thing versus that and that look like in a chart. Like, again, what is the powerful, like, how do we see those who can really do the digital nomad thing? Well, how do we see those who can only do that? Or only excel in that way? For me, this is when astrology becomes interesting. And especially when I connect it to, all right, like the movements of night and day. Because fundamentally, that's what the houses are about. Well, one thing I know I will find in every chart forever is that the midheaven degree is opposite the IC. Like, is it stupid to say that that's profound? Like, it's like an astronomical necessity. And yet, it's so deep. It is so deep that your work and your height of your light and your visibility in the middle of your life, you know, like it's going to be so inherently connected to, in a way, maybe I could even suggest just as powerfully the same yet opposite as the ascendant descendant, the ICMC are this in a very different way. The rooting and the reaching, and you can't get away from it. The example I often will share in my teachings is like, look, you can like inherit daddy's company, and you can very clearly see how deeply connected your reach, your midheaven is to your roots, your IC. You can run away from the family business. They were all doctors and I went and did astrology and they all are ashamed of me or whatever. Do you know? I'm not saying that there aren't great doctors practicing astrology and great astrologers practicing medicine. Please don't hear that. You hear where I'm coming from. I was destined to be the heir of daddy's, granddaddy's, great granddaddy's, grandmother's, mother's marshmallow factory. And I did this instead, you know? But I don't care if you're like running as fast as you can from home. Like, that is still your response to your roots. Do you see what I mean? Like, this line is a line. So, Neo, I saw this question kind of suggestion. Then I saw that you retracted it, which is interesting. So maybe I shouldn't. So maybe I should retract the rest of that sentence, and I shall. What are the astrological significators of beyond the work on the road? Now, a place that my astrology is like really changed, and by the way, like a challenge that I will face when I'm at this retreat next month is that I do astrology in a very different way than I was originally taught to. And when I go and do retreats with my original teacher, he doesn't want me to bring any of that other shit. Which is tricky because it's me. Do you know what I mean? It's like bring as much of that is in agreement with this approach. And I can dig that, right? Because like the way that I would look at this now, like what is the relationship of the planets that represent the sign at the IC versus the sign at the MC? And by the way, for me, there's always a conversation internally, often externally, around, is it about the IC and the MC degrees and signs, or the 4th and 10th signs of a chart? Which in my case, and for many of us, are actually different. I was born Gemini rising, so I have a Virgo 4th sign and a Pisces 10th sign. But in my chart, I have a Leo IC and an Aquarius MC. And when I say Aquarius and the planets associated, I don't like to say rulership, by the way. You know, Aquarius, is that Saturn or is that Uranus? Right? So that gets tricky. But in my own astrology, which is not my own, it is in the collection of the many different astrologies I've studied, right? And some personal insights and experiences tucked in. I'm like more inclined to look at the relationship of the planets that represent the signs than the signs themselves, or a blend of those, where in my original training it was just about the sign. So taking an astrological investigation of these things, like who can rock it at digital nomad versus who should just really take time off when they travel. And does it depend where you go? So bringing in the maps. Does it depend when you go? Bringing in the time maps, like that's a very interesting thing. But just what is the relationship between your work and your home, or your relationship to your work and your relationship to your home? You know what I mean? Like that for me is the kind of the driving question behind what I wanted to just put forward and get into together today. So, for example, we were just traveling, and though we were with grandparents, like we were parenting solo. Here, like right now, Maya is with Jose, who's this amazing nanny teacher, friend, like so many things. Like we're really blessed. We can't afford it, but we can't not afford it. I was really thinking about this earlier, like for Maya to have like a deep experience with another like nurturing teaching force, and also to have an experience of parents who didn't completely lose their lives from before to becoming parents of a baby. I think it's just like essential. Like there's no amount of currency, and it's maybe the best thing we can do to get to the village experience that we don't have personally, that I think is way more fundamentally human, you know? I think that the concept of, this is a different case, or the extreme perhaps, but I think it's more different, of like the hiring of people to handle services that perhaps we should personally be doing but don't want to do or whatever. Like that's intriguing. It's not what nanny is for me at all. For us, I shouldn't speak for Anna, but I think in this case I can. For us, like having nanny help, it's not trying to get somebody to do things that we don't want to do as parents. I think it's trying to get somebody who can help us be the parents we want to be, and also still be engaged with our work and our other life. Anyway, we didn't have that for 3 weeks. Right? So, I mean, it was cool because I think we really bonded as a family as a result. But it was hard. And there were all these, like, I was like, oh, we can just do this. Like, we never have time for this. We're going to have all this time. No, we're not. We didn't have any time. We had all this time to not have any time. You know what I mean? And that's just like, yeah, you know, sometimes it's probably much better to just open a chart and talk about what's happening now. Venus has come into Leo and she's opposed Pluto. Let's talk about that. How's that showing up in the world? You know. But I chose today instead to just babble about my recent experience. And it's something I'd love to explore. Actually, for those of you who are in constellations, I think on Saturday, I want to explore this question a little bit of, home work balance, but really like the home work line and how we might be able to explore that and how it expresses itself. And I think it'd be really cool to just interview the charts of some folks who feel reinvigorated in their work when they just open their laptop from an Airbnb here versus there and there and there, versus those who really feel like they need to be kind of solid in their practices, rooted in like their home. And there's something, by the way, when I say that, of the 10th is the 5th of the 6th, right? So our practices, the 6th, like birth our work. But also the 10th is the 7th of the 4th. Like there is a marriage between our work and our home. And I mean, I can take that as like deep to our reputation and our ancestry and our family line and such. And as deep, I don't want to call it shallow, as like our profession and like where we're living. So Jocko writes, I have a Gemini IC and find that I want to work at home, but for some reason always end up working out. Interesting. So Sagittarius midheaven. Which is fun, it's like Sagittarius midheaven. Should you be an astrologer? Should you be a travel agent? Should you be a philosopher? A teacher? Like if we just put all that stuff on Sagittarius, right? But, should you teach about going out? Or should your work be about going out, or do you have to go out to do your work? It's a kind of a fun thing to journey into with the Sagittarius midheaven. Jocko, if you're down, would you please share where in your nativity Jupiter lives? Jupiter, I ask about, of course, because he's the planet associated with the sign that was culminating when you were born, Sagittarius MC. Venus, you would like to share some ideas with me that you think would support my work home journey in a beautiful crafted life way. Thank you for that offering. That feels to me like an offer of a conversation outside of this current live thing. If you have advice here, feel free to put in the chat. But if you want to reach out to me otherwise and just connect and drink some astrology and offer some insight, advice, I'd sure appreciate it. Gemini at GeminiBrett.com. 2 T's, right? Gemini T's. Thank you. Neo with a Libra IC. Need comforts of peaceful, beautiful home. I can balance home and outside work. Hi.
Hey, can I tell them that they can come? They're trying to get the mattress today. What time do you want
them? After 3.
What are you up to?
Storytelling hour.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But I'm just about to end it. So, and then Neo, Libra IC, so an Aries midheaven. Do you work for yourself, right? Is that the only way Aries can work? Are you a professional warrior? Which could show up. But, and for those of us who really honor dispositorship in our work, which, it's a challenge for me because I can't necessarily provide like the nature key behind dispositorship, but it's become like so fundamental to my astrology. I'd be very interested in knowing where Mars is in your chart, Neo the Wise, to understand more about, how your particular Aries MC is configured for you to make a loving and show up and do all those things. Jocko responds with Jupiter in Leo conjunct Venus and Mercury. Whoa. Amazing. Right, and Jocko already told us a Gemini IC, Sagittarius midheaven, which typically happens in a Pisces rising chart. With the Pisces rising and any of the equinox signs, which of course Pisces, Aries, Virgo, Libra are, you tend to get a pretty strong cross. It's not always that way, but usually when somebody writes they have a Gemini IC, that means Pisces rising. And so I'm interested in that Jupiter in Leo, also with Pisces rising, to like represent you. It's like the old way, right? If Pisces is on the rise, then Jupiter is the steersman. But he also connects to the midheaven sign of Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius is often also the midheaven, however, in a... Whoa, I just went and did some weird astrology, huh? No, I was about to. Good gosh. Oh, I gotta say, hopping on a plane to fly across an ocean is an amazing thing. But for somebody who really, whether intentionally or not, is connected into like the natural cycles of time, it really F's with you. All right, so anyway, that Mercury, Venus, Jupiter conjunction in Leo, representing a Sagittarius midheaven Jupiter, in that kind of relating. Hopefully, Jocko, artist is not a strange term to you, and creator and leader. Like, there's a lot to show in there, but I would love to see you leading a artist retreat. there's so many other ways that can express itself, but Neo, Mars conjunct Venus in Virgo in the 3rd with an Aries midheaven is why I asked about them. It's cool to see these Venus connections for all y'all. All y'all meaning Jocko and Neo, who are our current candidates. So Venus and Mars conjunct in Virgo. That's pretty amazing to explore. Just in that kind of Hieros Gymos or sacred practice, that sacred marriage. It's like so much ritual and connection to the sacred in that. Neo, if I'm right, am I right that you live in Sedona? I feel like Virgo, Venus, Mars is so Sedona if it's done right. But with an Aries midheaven, it's interesting because it's just kind of like another way where I'd love for you to be a way shower and like bring people out to connect with the sacred earth and to express that in your word. Jacques, you're right. Yes, that is the idea. Thank you for that. I'm wondering if that's in response to this idea of you doing creative retreats. Oh, Neo, you're here in the Bay Area, huh? The larger Bay Area? Cassandra says, ooh, we should meet up. By the way, for Bay Area folks, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the local NCGR chapter president. We're having an in-person astrology day in the Bay event that I hope you'll come to. It's October 25th, Saturday, October 25th. Georgia Stathis is going to headline. It's amazing. And then Grace Cloyd and Ryan Hunt are going to do short presentations to open the thing. So it's going to be like 4 hours at the Albany Community Center. Is that what it's called? Masonic and Marin. So ncgrsanfrancisco.org to learn more about that. I need to get now that I'm home and can work again, need to get back into this. But I want to, on the next day, the Sunday, October 26th, plan a field trip to the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose, where they have a bunch of Egyptian and like Babylonian artifacts and stuff. So for those of you who are in the Bay or the larger Bay or simply want to come in for this, like plan on my 50th birthday is October 24th, so it'd be fun to hang out, share some time. But October 25th, NCGR, San Francisco's first annual Astrology Day in the Bay will become Astrology Days in the Bay if I have my way and the board has our ways, I believe. And then on Sunday the 26th to journey to the Rosicrucian Museum. So I got to get the word out about that like super soon and see how many people want to join up, because if we have a good crew, I want to figure out how we can like rent a bus or something and not just take 1,000 cars. All right, so stay tuned, friends. Yeah, I'm sorry to say these Wednesday live streams are going away, at least for a time, so I can support my partner, my baby mama, and her studies, which just happened to be in this time that these have been happening. You can stay signed up at my mailing list at GeminiBrett.com if you want to hear about what I'm up to otherwise. But, you know, YouTube, where you're at right now, because my computer wouldn't work to beam live to a few places at once, will be like the main place that I'm doing live stuff. So just be subscribed to the channel and ring the bell if you want to be notified when I go live. I likely will like pop up and go live randomly, and then maybe have a more of a plan, maybe for the things that happen on the channel otherwise. So time will tell. Thanks so much for coming in to hold space for this random transmission of thought about my own life and challenges and growth opportunities and such, and tying that into the charts. And thanks for some of you for sharing some of the powerful symbols in your own charts. And I'm glad to hear that it looks like a few of you are here in the Bay. Let's all hang out. Let's all get down with the stars. So please reach out and let me know. So let's just finish though with this question that Jocko asked. What is the effect of a chart when the degrees of ICMC versus rising DC is the same or not the same? Yeah, so when the horizon and meridian are square versus something else. Like for me, they're actually like more in a mystic rectangle. I have a Gemini ascendant that, generally speaking, trines my Aquarius midheaven. It's a really cool question. I don't have time to attempt to answer it right now. I will say I encourage you to just notice by just casting charts, and not like a transit chart, and just moving through the hours and seeing how there's signs that do the square versus signs that do the rectangles. And that will help you, I think, contemplate that question in such a way that your own natural answers will come through. Okay. Neo writes, would I bless you with an answer to your question above? I think I lost it. Yeah, I think I lost that question. Koala says, hit the like button. Thanks, Koala. It really does help a tremendous amount. Jocko says, in South Africa, thanks for beaming in from the other side. Yeah, Neo, I would answer your question, but I can't find it. All right. Anyway, Bay Area folk, let's get together. And for those of you who are here and around the world, please know that I have regular get-togethers with Constellations, which is the School of Astrology membership community. It's an amazing space. I'm excited to be back home so I can kind of dream into offering more for that place where we connect and just explore life and charts together. You can learn more about that at GeminiBrett.com. And don't know when or how regularly or what like storytelling hour looks like moving forward, but it will look like something. Okay, so here was the question. Can one shift their energies by shifting perspectives from tropical Scorpio to sidereal Sun? So be like, well, let me say, like looking from one reference versus another, can you shift your perspective? Here's like an interesting way that I just experienced, right? I was just driving on his dad's car kilometers, right? There's no mile markings on it at all. It'd be more of a shift, I think, if I went to like England and drove on the other side of the street and the other wheel on the other side of the car. But in some regards, and this is going to be blasphemic in the eyes of some, looking at your Scorpio tropical sun, which like me, Neo, becomes a Libra sun in the sidereal zodiac, in one regard, you might look at that as if it's the same thing viewed from a different reference plane. And why I would say that that's going to sound like blasphemy to some, like some will say, look, Scorpio and Libra, they just couldn't be anything more unalike. And there's truth to that, right? What I would, I think this is the most powerful way to contemplate this, is that in 2,000 years from now, somebody born at the same time of the year you were when the sun was in tropical Scorpio, they will have the sun in sidereal Virgo. And a couple thousand years after that, the tropical Scorpio sun will be in sidereal Leo. And then tropical Scorpio sun in sidereal Cancer, right? So you and I are living at a time when tropical Scorpio means sidereal Libra. And by the way, that's not like a one-to-one exact statement, but generally speaking. And that's profound. So I think you can definitely get a different glimpse of yourself by looking through sidereal measurement or draconic reference or whatever. And I think it's worthy of your time as long as you don't lose yourself in the process. As long as you find yourself again, you'll find more of you. But I think that perhaps the most powerful opportunity that we have in contemplating tropical versus sidereal measurement is to know that the tropical sidereal relationship, or let me say it this way, tropical zodiac's relation to the constellations, it is completely determined by the astrological age in which you have incarnated and thrive. And that opens a powerful gateway to understand not only more about Scorpio, but more about Scorpio now versus a couple thousand years ago or 500 years from now even, or more. And more about that coming out super soon, because I'm working with Mary, who was here. I'm not sure, Mary, if you're still here. And Mary, by the way, I know I owe you an email. But on an interface, an online app that will help us play with tropical sidereal constellational and see how things shift through the ages. So again, stay tuned. I'm disappearing on Wednesdays, but I'll be here. Send you all love. Thanks for spending some time with me. Peace.